So yes, hello again. I'm Anita. I'm just a GP from Birmingham, and I am more than delighted to be invited today to talk to you guys about my career pathway, my what I'm doing at the moment. It's slightly different. It's not something that most medics are doing at the moment, but I am quite passionate about it. I'll tell you all about it in a minute. So I've done my MBBS from Pakistan, my MRC GP from London, the Royal College of General Practitioners. I embarked on my media career while I was really young. And I think it's very pertinent that I tell you the story because it's quite interesting. So my father had a kennel in Islamabad of Irish Greyhounds. And this woman who was working, she was a producer for Pakistan television. It's an equivalent of BBC in Pakistan. And she was going to come over and interview my dad because she was doing this documentary on pets, and I was 19 at that time. And of course, she wanted to come over, interview us, and, because it was a documentary on pets and everything. Now she was supposed to air the show in 7 days. And where the anchor person, the original anchor person who had the show was maybe my age as well at that time. But when she saw the dogs, she said, well, there's absolutely no way I'm going to film with like 17 dogs, because we had 17 dogs. And she told the producer that, you know what, I'm quitting this. I'm not going to go in. I have a phobia. There's absolutely no way. You said it's going to be a dog or two. There's no way I'm standing among 17 dogs. So the producer was stuck. She had no anchor person. And I don't know how she came up with this idea that I could perhaps replace this anchor person last minute. And she spoke to my dad. And she said, look, Raja Saab, you've got a daughter. She looks fine to me. She seems a bit confident. Is it okay if I borrow her? And I remember my dad saying to her, well, you can borrow her, but make sure that she doesn't put on any makeup. I don't know what the rationale behind that was, but he just wanted me to go on air without any makeup on. And that's how I embarked on my media career. So I was 19 when I did a documentary on pets. And then I ended up doing so I was doing A-levels at that time, getting into med school. And when I was in med school, I started doing morning shows, which was live work that I used to do for Pakistan television. And I remember in between med school, I started doing some more serious work, which was like current affairs, interviewing ministers, prime ministers, and talking about the current situation of Pakistan and all sorts of things. But I had to bid my media career a farewell, of course, when we decided to move to the United Kingdom, because now there was very passionate about pursuing his career in medicine. I was doing medicine just because I had to, and I wasn't given an option when I was much younger. So at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do with medicine, whether I wanted to continue doing it or not. If we would have not moved to the United Kingdom, I would still be doing media full time. And I'm pretty certain about that. But because we moved to the United Kingdom, I had to think about choosing a career pathway for myself as well. And at that point, I was doing, because I had to do some foundation competencies. So my pathway is very different to Nader because I'm German. So I did not have to take PLAB. So I could just come to the United Kingdom and start working here after getting registered with the GMC. So it was pretty straightforward for me. Despite the fact that both of us were class fellows and we went to the same university. I don't know how I was exempted. So I started working here and when I was doing hospital work, that's when I decided that, this isn't for me. I don't want to be 40 and doing night on calls and being pulled out of my bed. I really want to sleep in my bed at night. And I think this is something that you have to bear in mind when you want to choose your pathway. Once you have done medicine, you need to be certain that you want to be doing these long shifts and these night shifts, and you need to be passionate about it, and you need to really enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, then you can't do it and it becomes overbearing. And if anybody tells you that medicine is easy, everyone can do it, I'm telling you, it's not easy. If you want to pursue medicine, you really need to have your heart in it, and you need to, from a very early stage, know what you want to do with it. I mean, I was a lost person, all along, because I didn't want to do this. But when I came to the United Kingdom, I was quite pleased to know that there is this option of doing general practice, which is shorter. which allows you flexibility, which pays your bills well, and you know, gives you that sort of human interaction that you require. So that's how I sort of in my mind started preparing myself to pursue general practice. But I had to work in a hospital because I needed my foundation competency signed off. And for that, I had to take on I did a staff grade job at a hospital here in the United Kingdom in Birmingham, where I was essentially working as an F1, F2. And then once I got signed off, I did a year of locuming. And after that, I got a training number because I applied for a GP training number, and I was in the South Worcestershire training scheme. At the moment, you know, I am doing lots of work apart from general practice, where I am, because I am from the BAME community myself. It's important, I feel, that we spread awareness amongst people from the BAME community. And I'm quite passionate about that. So I work with different charities, as you can see on the screen. One of them is called Ask Doc. And what we do essentially is make videos on different topics. And it's very regular what we do. So it could be bowel screening, cervical screening, you know, little bits and pieces. But in Urdu, I do them for them so that we can raise awareness in the Urdu speaking, Hindi speaking community. I also do videos for a charity called Project Halo, where we essentially do COVID related stuff. It's more COVID orientated. The aim is to spread awareness around COVID and bust all myths around it. Currently, I am doing an ad hoc health show for British Muslim television. I did one last week, a show at around 7 p.m. and I'm doing one next week as well. The idea is to sort of, you know, pick up a topic and talk about it. I haven't taken that on permanently as yet, but it's something that I do for fun and is ad hoc. I did a documentary for BBC, which was a couple of months ago. It was around miscarriages and it was awareness around miscarriages, because I'm also a spokesperson for a charity called Tommy's. I did suffer from a late miscarriage myself, so I'm quite passionate about spreading awareness around it. So I usually do videos for them as well, and, you know, talks or whatever they ask me to. And all of this is free of charge. So no, I make no money on any of all this work. It is just out of goodwill, and this is basically my hobby. I've put my Instagram handle and my Twitter handle on the screen for you. We started an Instagram account because we used to travel a lot. So we used to do 6 destinations a year. But once COVID hit us, of course, we are doing none now. So it's become more of an awareness, health related platform now. Right. Yeah. So while I was training, I was living in Birmingham, and Worcestershire is quite far away. So I remember doing 62 miles from my house every single day to get to Worcester. It was not easy, and I did struggle quite a lot because by then I had a 3-year-old son as well. The perks of getting married young, you know, you end up having children as well, and you have to manage them, which is difficult. But yeah, I persevered because I just couldn't switch. That's one thing. I just thought that, you know, I have to get this out of the way now. There's no way I can switch careers. I've chosen general practice. I've got to finish this now. And I took my exams. We've got 2 exams to become a GP. There's a written exam and an OSCE type exam. And I finished my exams in 2019. And that's when I qualified to become a GP. I am a long-term. So what I do now is I'm not a salaried or a partner. I am a flexible GP. I am a locum GP. And I work in 2-3 regular practices, and I love the flexibility. So when we talk about general practice, why general practice? Why not a hospital specialty? As I mentioned before, when I was doing my FY2 competency jobs at the hospital, that's when I decided that hospital medicine isn't for me, because I just felt that, you know, when you had to switch from days to nights and nights to days, it just affected my mental health, and I would never have the energy. I just didn't feel happy. And I knew from the start that I needed to choose something that had more flexibility. There are lots of other options. I mean, I chose general practice. I've got colleagues who are doing occupational health, who are doing sexual health in the community. There are lots and lots of options that you can branch out to if you want to not work in a hospital, for instance, and not do those long on calls. The beauty about general practice is that, for instance, if you do general practice, it's 3 years of training and it's not the end of it. So what happens is once you've done the 3 years of training, you can actually decide to become a gypsy. A gypsy is a GP with special interest. So you can branch out into dermatology, occupational health, you can do palliative medicine. It's endless. You can do diabetes, you can do anything you want to do in the community. And it's really easy because all you have to do is do like another master's or diploma and you become a GP with a special interest. So essentially, if in another 5 years I get bored of general practice and I don't want to do this anymore, I have an option to do something different, and I can actually run specialist clinics in the community, because the hospitals are under immense pressure and they are so grateful when they find someone who can actually take on their work in the community. So this is the beauty of general practice. The other thing that I love about general practice is that if you need a bit of cash, if you need to, for instance, buy a car, you need to put in some money for a mortgage, you can pick up some extra shifts. It pays you really well. And you don't have to worry about finances. Like for me and Nader, as I've just mentioned before, we came from a very comfortable background. So when we came to the United Kingdom, it was a very big change for us. And, you know, your financial freedom is a big thing for us. And I think that being a general practitioner, it gives you that, especially if you want to be a salaried. You can do a couple of shifts over the weekend, or maybe do 2-3 hours towards the end of the day, and you get paid well. I mean, if you compare it to, of course, if you compare it to some big financial advisor in London, it doesn't compare. But if you compare what you're getting to most of the people in the United Kingdom doing different jobs, it does pay well. The other thing I love about general practice is the continued medical education. So what happens on a daily basis is that you learn things. I'm someone who loves to learn things, and it keeps me going. So I love to acquire knowledge every single day. So if I learn something new, or I have to deal with a complex patient, I love it because I've learned something new. I just don't like my life to stop. So when I did my MLC GP, I didn't want to just stop learning there, but I wanted to learn more things and equip myself, because I think that makes it so much more enjoyable, especially if you see someone who's complex and no one else can solve the puzzle, and you can, because you've seen this before or you read up on it. So that's what I love about general practice. You see these really complex patient rashes, and lots of dermatology, lots of peds, mental health. Because I've struggled with my mental health, I think that it puts me in a better position to understand how they're feeling. And I mean, I may be wrong, but I just feel that if you've been through something yourself, then that makes you more empathetic, and it's the empathy is amazing then. So that's one thing that I really loved about general practice. That the fact that I'm learning on a daily basis, coming across really, really complex patients, and it's amazing. And the way they can talk to you, the interaction, it's great. Now, the pandemic has really affected general practice at the moment. The morale is not as great as it was before the pandemic, because I think there's a lot of blame game if you watch the news and everything. And unfortunately, the sort of impression is that the GPs don't want to see anyone, which is not true. I was heavily pregnant with my second baby throughout the pandemic, and I had a COVID baby in August 2020. And I worked up until, I think, 3 days before he was born. I was still at work. So, I totally beg to disagree that general practitioners are doing nothing. They've done a lot of work, and they have, unfortunately, not gotten the appreciation that they did deserve for the work that they did put in. And we were frontliners when it came to the COVID vaccination program rollout. And the charge that NHS England paid us was minuscule, so it was all in goodwill, really. We're doing virtual clinics as we speak at the moment, video consultations. We do see patients who warrant to be seen. And of course, the human interaction isn't what it used to be. And this is something that I do miss. And I feel that for me as a person, I mean, other GPs would have different opinions, but for me, because I loved talking to my patients and seeing them and, you know, knowing about them, it makes it a bit more difficult for me now, because I'm talking to someone on the phone. I can't see them, so I don't know what their body language is, because general practice is a lot about body language, the way they look at you, the way they're trying to hide things, the way they're not opening up. And I think that this telephone consult, the telephone consults don't put you in a very good position to sort of assess the gravity of the situation sometimes. So, and also because they're not in front of you, sometimes they can, you know, misinterpret what you're saying. You could, you know, fail to understand what they're trying to tell you. So it's very tricky. Yes, it is very tricky. And I also miss the sort of, you know, coffee breaks we used to have together as a team, the team meetings, that's all Zoom and, you know, Teams, via Teams now. So it's not what it used to be, but I'm hoping that things will get better at some point. And yeah, I mean, from the pandemic, what did I learn from the pandemic? From the pandemic, I was never involved in health inequalities in the BAME community or spreading health awareness or anything, because I, in my head, naively thought that, you know, what everyone knows about it because it's all over television, and probably everyone understands the importance of cervical screening and breast screening and all sorts of things, and bowel screening, because, you know, there's so much propagation everywhere. So hopefully, you know, they're picking up the message. But when the pandemic hit us and we started the vaccination rollout, that's when that was my light bulb moment, because I realized that, hold on a second. So people from the BAME community are not actually showing up on these appointments. So, and they're dying far more, and they're at a high risk far more. So this means we're, you know, where are we lacking? And that's when I started looking up different organizations that were already working for around health awareness for the BAME community. And that's when I started actively sort of volunteering to work for them. And that's how I sort of shot up, let's say it, and rekindled my media career here in the United Kingdom, because I left it behind when I was in Pakistan, and, you know, when we moved here to the United Kingdom. So that really, you know, because I remember I put up a video on Twitter, which was around December 2020, very recently. And someone contacted me and they were like, can you do a video for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I made one for them. And then from there on, you know, it was amazing, because I was contacted by so many people who wanted me to make videos for them. And that's how I ended up doing a TV show. So yes, it was quite interesting. Yep, that's all about me.